Sloth Uni. I hope you guys sure enjoyed this week of football because I sure did. My fantasy team in my main league might be on the ER. It's falling off the bone, but it doesn't even matter because the Miami Dolphins effectively put the league on notice. We're not solely here to talk about Tua and the Dolphins though, even though I could easily spend the next few hours talking your ears off until you eventually grow tired and aggravated enough to chop them off. We're here to talk about all the events that occurred in week 2, and I don't even want to waste time anymore with this one. Grab some grub, get comfortable, and make sure those damn tinfoil hats are strapped on tight because class is now in session. But before we get into anything in this segment, you know I have to talk about Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and the Miami Dolphins comeback in week 2. The guy had 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he threw 2 interceptions. But 4 of those touchdowns came in the fourth quarter. They were down going into the half 28-7. They had a 21-point deficit, and the coach, Mike McDaniel, told the team, don't even look at the scoreboard. Just ignore the scoreboard. Usually when teams are down going into the half, they're like, oh, we're only down 1 score. We're down 2 scores. We can make this a game, guys. He told them, don't even look at the scoreboard. That's how bad it was. But Tua, Mr. Fourth Quarter, Mr. Ice in his veins, after all the hate he got, after all the mess people were talking about him, after all the nonsense the national media was putting out about this man, he ignored everything. He shone through. He showed why the Dolphins took him 5th overall. He shown why the Dolphins trusted him enough to ignore all the other quarterbacks taken and put their faith in Tua. And he delivered big time against a Baltimore Ravens team that didn't even play bad. Lamar Jackson had himself a day. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson later. But Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both had 11 catches. Tyreek had 190 and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle had 171 and 2 touchdowns. This is the first time in NFL history that 2 wide receivers on the same team had over 10 catches, over 150 yards, and 2+ touchdowns. That is crazy. Everybody who doubted the Miami Dolphins and everybody who doubted Tua is either backtracking right now or they're going to downplay what this young man and these people did. Because even if you take away the 2 bombs to Tyreek Hill saying, oh, it was wide open. He's just throwing the wide open Tyreek Hill. The guy still had over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Even taking away the 2 Tyreek Hill touchdowns and the 2 bombs. He still had over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's an amazing game taking away that. In adding that, because he did it, he had a damn near historic game. He tied the second most in league history with 6 touchdowns. The most touchdowns thrown in the game is 7. He was 1 off. I just want to say, I'm so happy for the guy. After everything everybody was giving this guy, all the doubt, all the hate, all the disbelief, he managed to shock the world. And still, some people to this day are downplaying what this young man did. They're trying to discredit him every step of the way. And I'm just here for the ride of when he takes it 1 week at a time and continues to deliver on big performances. Let's get into these big steppers of the week. For those of you who don't know, the big steppers of the week are the people who actually did well this week. We're getting into big steppers and the big stinkers. Starting off with the quarterback position. We already went over Tua Tagovailoa, so we're not going to cover him. But just to remind you all, he had 469 yards and 6 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, but the 6 touchdowns negates all of that. Lamar Jackson, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 9 rushing attempts for 119 yards and a rushing touchdown. If you split up those 2 passing yards and rushing yard stats, you would have been happy with what your quarterback gave you or your running back gave you that week. Lamar Jackson did both, and sadly, I had to play against him this week. He was absolutely baptizing the Dolphins defense. They just made some critical stops when they had to in order to come back into that game. But Lamar Jackson played phenomenally. On to Jalen Hurts. 313 yards, or 333 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He had 11 rushes on the ground for 57 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have been surprising people left and right. I had the Eagles being very good this year, but they shocked me with just how good they are. They look dominant. And this isn't just in week 2. They look dominant in week 1. Jalen Hurts has clearly improved as a passer. I thought he would take a step forward with A.J. Brown being there, and he still has Devontae Smith taking a second step. So I did think he would take a step forward as a passer, but he looks incredible. He looks like how Lamar Jackson took a step as a passer from year 1 to year 2. Jalen Hurts has a night and day difference from what he looked like last year and the year before that to this year as a pure pocket passer. And with his running ability and with the way the Eagles defense is looking this year, they could be a force. And they're more than likely going to win their division, honestly. The Cowboys don't look like they won it. Even when Dak Prescott was in, they didn't look too impressive. The Commanders look pretty good, but they don't look as dominant as the Eagles. And not going to lie, the Giants, they're 2-0, but it's a little bit fluky in my opinion. I don't think they're going to be trash, but they're not an undefeated team. They're not going to win a division. I could see them not being last in the division, though. And oddly enough, the Cowboys could really finish last in division with the way all these other teams have been playing. But on to Josh Allen. He's been dominant, always will be dominant. Hopefully the Dolphins can slow him up next week, but he always loves to have career games whenever he plays the Miami Dolphins. He had 317, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in this last game when they absolutely brutalized the Titans. Carson Wentz, 337, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. The Commanders have been looking dominant. Carson Wentz looks like he has it back together. I was raving about Carson Wentz. I'm still not a Carson Wentz supporter, but I did tell people before the year started, Carson Wentz might have a better season than what he did last year. And he had a pretty good year last year. He had just over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And now he's playing with the best wide receiver core he's ever had in his career. He's got Terry McLaurin, he's got Logan Thomas, he's got Jahan Dotson, he's got Curtis Samuel, he's got J.D. McKissick, he's got Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson is coming back for them in week 5. The Commanders' offense is going to be very good this year, and especially for fantasy. They look like they have a ton of options. And Carson Wentz, if you took him late in drafts and you're in a 2-quarterback league, you are rejoicing right now. Next 2 up, Kyler Murray, Jared Goff. They both have phenomenal games. Kyler Murray is single-handedly carrying the Cardinals right now on his back. With no D-Hop, the offense doesn't really look too great. And Kyler Murray is just like, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. And he does everything. He's like, this is the plan. The plan goes to shit. And then he's like, all right, I got to put matters into my own hands. And he thugs it out. Jared Goff was one of my people that I thought would low-key have a good year because Jared Goff he's not going to will you to a Super Bowl, but in a good system with good weapons, Jared Goff has shown before in the league he can put up stats, and that's what he is doing. Jared Goff is not a horrible quarterback. I know I've given him a lot of mess in the past, but Jared Goff isn't a horrible quarterback. He had success on the Rams. And now he got Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got DJ Chark, he's got DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson, Jamal Williams, and they've got Jamison Williams coming back sometime in this season, maybe, but that'll probably be next year, if not this season. But Jared Goff is looking very good. Will he consistently give you 3-4 touchdowns a game? No. But you see that he's very capable of doing that this year, and that was not even close to being in the cards last year. On to the wide receivers. We already covered Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Absolutely phenomenal. If you had them, you were rejoicing. If you had both of them, there was a 99.999999999% chance that you won your matchup if you had both of them. If you had both of them and you lost, you had to have gone against Amon-Ra St. Brown and Stephon Diggs and maybe like Cooper Kupp or something, because there is no way you had both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and you lost. Unless the rest of your team is just garbage. But Stephon Diggs, 12 for 148 and 3 touchdowns. He looks absolutely amazing. He was great the past few years since he's been with Josh Allen. The only disconnect last year was that him and Josh Allen weren't connecting on the deep balls to intermediate balls, and it was a lot of just short stuff. But it seems like they've got that connection back that they had from that first year, and they've taken a step forward. Stephon Diggs was one of my dark horses to finish as the wide receiver 1 on the season, if not Cooper Kupp. And yes, I know that Gabriel Davis was out, so he's not going to get 3 touchdowns every game, but you very well see that he can do it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 for 116 and 2 touchdowns. There was a lot of debate about who would be the number 1 for this offense between TJ Hawkinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I guess we're seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown was not a fluke. I never thought he was a fluke. I just thought TJ Hawkinson was the one for this offense. I loved Amon-Ra St. Brown coming into the draft of the fantasy football draft. I loved where he was going. I loved the value. Sadly, I didn't get too much of Amon-Ra St. Brown. But with what he was doing last year to end out the season, that doesn't just disappear. You can't produce like that in the NFL and just fall off the face of the earth. I knew he was still going to have production this year, and it looks like he's just picking up where he left off. Jared Goff said it's who he looks for once the snap is going off. That's his number 1. It's his favorite target. It's his go-to. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going nowhere. If you have him, do not trade him away for less than what he's worth. This is the production that he can be giving you week in, week out. Christian Kirk. I'm sorry, $20 million man Christian Kirk, because he's proven everybody who said he wasn't worth $20 million a year wrong. He put up 6 for 78 and 2 touchdowns, and the Jaguars are using him very well in this offense. This is what happens when you have a good scheme on offense. Doug Peterson was one of my favorite hires going into the season. It looks like he knows how to utilize a number 1 wide receiver in Christian Kirk. And again, same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you have Christian Kirk, I personally believe he will keep this up. He is the number 1 for this team. Trevor Lawrence looks really good, and somebody's going to catch the balls from Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was another person who I thought would be very good this year. Jaguars are my dark horse to win the division. If the Titans did not win the division, I was not all in on the Colts like most people. A lot of people were saying Matt Ryan this, Matt Ryan that. Dude, Matt Ryan is 37 years old. He was not winning anybody's division. If anybody was going to win this division, it was either going to be the Jaguars or the Titans. Titans don't look too good this year. It's looking like it's going to be the Jaguars. Garrett Wilson, 8 for 102 and 2 touchdowns. As an Elijah Moore owner, we're going to get into that later, I am frightened. Yes, Elijah Moore, by all metrics, is still the number 1 for this offense. Yes, his quarterback has not played for this team yet in Zach Wilson. So there's still hope that Elijah Moore will be the number 1 for this offense once Zach Wilson gets back. But Garrett Wilson is going to have games like this on occasion. Maybe not exactly like this, but Garrett Wilson is a force. He will be very good in the league. He looks phenomenal. His snap count is bound to go up. He hasn't even played that many snaps compared to Elijah Moore, but he's outproduced him in the 2 games that they've played. I don't think Garrett Wilson will continue being the 1 because I still believe that Elijah Moore is extremely talented. He'll bounce back and he will reclaim his mantle as the number 1. But Garrett Wilson is not going anywhere, especially once Zach Wilson comes back. Drake London, 8 for 86 and a touchdown. This was one of the reasons why I was so low on Kyle Pitts going into this season. Kyle Pitts last year had the entire receiving room to himself. But the Falcons went out and drafted a wide receiver in the first round in Drake London. He was the first wide receiver off the board. I thought he would be the first wide receiver off the board because he was the youngest wide receiver coming out of college. He was one of the most dominant looking wide receivers coming out of college. And he fit the bill very much so out of everybody else as a number 1 wide receiver. And he's been phenomenal since he's gotten drafted. He looked great in the preseason. He got injured. Week 1 he came back, looked great. Week 2 came back again, looked amazing. Drake London is going nowhere. Drake London was the reason I was so low on Kyle Pitts, guys. People assume that Kyle Pitts was still going to be the 1 for this offense. No, Kyle Pitts is not going to disappear off the face of the earth, but he will not have consistent games of being dominant. He didn't even have consistent games of being dominant last year. He was a little up and down, and it will still be a lot of up and down because Drake London is here, and he is here to stay. Some other names that had really good weeks: Rashad Bateman, Curtis Samuel, did amazing. They're going nowhere as well. On to the running back position. There weren't too many phenomenal weeks at the running back position outside of the top 2 performers. Same with the tight end position, but we'll get into the tight end position right after this. Aaron Jones, 15 for 132 and a touchdown on the ground, 3 for 31 and a touchdown through the air. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, I said it before, they are going to split the work on this team, and it's going to be Aaron Jones 1 week, A.J. Dillon 1 week. Aaron Jones has already done this previously in his career. He'll have huge games, and then he'll come back down to earth and have decent games. And it'll be the exact same this year because they have A.J. Dillon there. They're going to split the work. Sometimes it's going to be A.J. Jones. Sometimes it's going to be A.J. Dillon that's getting all the work and all the touchdowns. Sometimes it's going to be Aaron Jones that's getting all the touchdowns. This is just going to be splitting up the work and the performances week in, week out. Sometimes they'll double up. But if you have either one of these running backs, maybe I would trade them for a more consistent person at the position. But I would keep both of them if you have them. Last week was your week to trade low on Aaron Jones. And this week is your week to trade trade low on A.J. Dillon. We'll get into that in tomorrow's session though. Spoiler alerts. Nick Chubb, 17 for 87 and 3 touchdowns. Nick Chubb being one of the most consistent rushers in the league again for another year. He is infinite. He is one of the best pure rushers in the league, and he's showing it week after week after year. Nick Chubb, for no explicit reason, continues to fall in drafts. I don't know why. It's like the Keenan Allen effect. Keenan Allen, Nick Chubb, they're boring, but they get you points. They give you big games. They're extremely consistent. There's no reason why people should be passing up on them in drafts year after year after year after year. Yes, I know Nick Chubb doesn't get any receiving work, but if you look at his stats throughout the years, he's consistently putting up 1,300 plus yards, 8 plus touchdowns. You're going to be okay with that. He's one of the most consistent rushers in the league. Yes, he doesn't have a quarterback this year for the majority of the year, but all that means is they have to rely on their running backs more. Do the math, people. It's not astrophysics. DeAndre Swift. As a DeAndre Swift owner, I am not scared at the workload that he got this week. They already said with his ankle injury, they were going to put him out of the offense just a little bit. They were going to use him on a need-to-need basis. And as the production workhorse, I don't even know what to call it, as the super productive running back that he is, he had 5 for 56, 2 for 31, and a touchdown through the air. He had another touchdown that went right just above his hands. If Jared Goff would have put a little bit less oomph on it, he would have had 2 touchdowns and a lot more yards through the air. It doesn't take DeAndre Swift that many touches to produce. He is extremely productive with his touches. He's one of the most explosive running backs in the game right now. And I know his touches will bounce back up next week and the weeks to come once he comes back from this injury. Damian Harris, 15 for 71 and a touchdown. He could have had another touchdown, but that's just how things go. Damian Harris is someone who I was a lot skeptical about just because of the touchdowns total. I believed it would go down. I didn't believe it would go down to a drastic amount, but I don't believe he will score over double-digit touchdowns this year. If he does, it'll be 10 right on the dot. Personally, I would be trading him away after this week because if he doesn't give you a touchdown, you're not happy with the production that he gives you. I personally don't like running backs like that where if it's a touchdown or bust kind of guy. But hey, if you need it, you got it. David Montgomery, he bounced back in a magnificent way after that week 1 scare. Everybody was talking about Khalil Herbert is going to be the new running back of this offense. The coaching staff loves Khalil Herbert more, blah, 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 blah. David Montgomery responded with 15 for 122. He showed everybody why he is the number 1 running back for this offense. If this offense was a bit better, he would easily be a top 10 running back, but this offense probably won't be that good. But David Montgomery will still be good. Have a day. Austin Eckler. This one I'm a little bit scared about as an Austin Eckler owner in some leagues. He put up 14 for 39 on the ground, but 9 for 55 in the air. He hasn't been too productive on the ground, which is what scares me. But he'll have a chance to have more production on the ground, especially with Justin Herbert's injury. They may be looking to lean on Austin Eckler a bit more. And with Justin Herbert more than likely not looking to get hit, he'll be looking at Austin Eckler as a dump down option a lot more. So I'm not too scared on his production because I know he'll get the workload for it. but it's just something to watch out for. Some other names that did have some really good weeks: CMC, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson. On to the tight end position. Outside of these tight ends, all the other tight ends were either meh or you were very upset with what they gave you. Mark Andrews, 9 for 104 and a touchdown, did exactly what you wanted him to do when you drafted him. Nothing more to see here. Mark Andrews being Mark Andrews. Darren Waller, 6 for 50 and a touchdown. Same thing with Mark Andrews, doing exactly what you drafted him to do. Nothing more to see here. Zach Ertz, one of my starts of the week, 8 for 75, 0 touchdowns. But with D-Hop not in the offense, Zach Ertz is finally healthy again. He was a little bit nicked up in week 1, so he didn't have too great of a week, but it was one of the targets that I was looking for to step up in D-Hop's stead. Rondale Moore is one of the other ones, but he's been still a bit nicked up. Until Rondale Moore comes back or Hollywood steps it up, Zach Ertz is going to be one of the main targets. He's going to be phenomenal for the next few weeks. Even when D-Hop gets back, it's just going to make the offense a lot more high-powered. Zach Ertz, he's a steal if you got him later in drafts. Now we're moving on to the big stinkers of the week. We're going to tell you guys where to go from here with some of these guys, some early adjustments, and I'm going to give you a panic level out of 10 for how scared I am of these guys for the rest of the season. Starting off with the quarterback position, we got Kirk Cousins. He went 2 for 21, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. I'm not too worried about Kirk Cousins because, yes, I expected him to do a lot better. And yes, I expected him to put more of a fight, but the Eagles defense looked extremely dominant. Kirk Cousins is known that when the lights start shining bright, Kirk Cousins looks horrendous. I don't know what he was doing in these last, I would say 20 possessions. He was just throwing what should have been pick after pick after pick after pick. I swear if Darius Slay had stickums on his gloves, he probably could have had about 5 picks this game. I'm not too concerned about Kirk Cousins rest of the season because he does this on occasion, especially in primetime games. So I'm giving this a 4. Really a 3. No, I'm going to stick with a 4. I'm going to stick with a 4 because it is alarming if you have Kirk Cousins, especially for the rest of his primetime games. Will he keep performing like this? Probably. But he is still a very good quarterback. He won't do this every week. It's just a damper on your spirits, especially if you have him for some primetime games. Next up, we got Matt Ryan. 195, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I'm giving this a full-on 9 panic level. I was already doubting Matt Ryan going into this season. This will more than likely be his last season. I think he retires after this. The Colts have had, I believe it's been the past 7 years, they've had a new quarterback play for their team in 7 consecutive years. If it was either 6 or 7, and it's going to be 7 or 8 after this year because Matt Ryan, he's 37 years old. I don't know what convinced people that he was just going to come in, lead this team to the playoffs. Listen, it's only week 2. Maybe he wills up some old man strength, some old man wisdom, some old man savvy plays, and wills this team to the playoffs with the help of JT because it's going to take the help of JT. But Matt Ryan should be started on nobody's roster. If you have Matt Ryan, drop him, please. Ryan Tannehill, 117, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I'm going to give this one a 7. Actually, yes, a 7. I was going to say an 8, but I'm going to stick with the 7 again. I am very concerned with Ryan Tannehill, especially with their wide receiver core looking like it's taken a huge hit. Treylon Burks hasn't been what people expected him to be, and Derrick Henry hasn't been what you expected him to be. We're going to talk about Derrick Henry a little bit later, and Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. But right now, Ryan Tannehill, I'm very scared to be starting Ryan Tannehill in fantasy right now. If you have any other quarterbacks, I would definitely let Ryan Tannehill ride it out on the bench until they figure it out on offense, because right now, it's looking scary. Broncos country is not riding. Russell Wilson, 219, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's not all on Russ, the Broncos struggles, but I will say that Russell Wilson has not looked good either. It's a mix between the play calling, it's a mix between injuries to Jerry Jeudy, it's a mix between Russell Wilson not looking what he was promoted to be, traded to be. And keep in mind, the Broncos literally auctioned off their future for this man, and it doesn't look like it's going well so far. Their offense, it's been mainly red zone issues, and with two talented running backs, you would assume that this can turn itself around, because I do believe it will turn itself around. But as of right now, Russell Wilson has not looked great. I'm going to give this one a 6 because it is alarming. Actually, I'm going to give it a 5. It looks alarming, but I do think they will turn it around. It's just early season struggles. First year head coach. I know there's other teams that have first year head coaches. They starting off fast, but no team is the same. No season is the same. Broncos, they're just getting off to a slow start. I do think better days are ahead, but it doesn't look good right now. Jameis Winston, panic level. Once he gets healthy, I won't be panicked about Jameis Winston, but as of right now, I'm a 7. Tom Brady. This is a tricky one, because Tom Brady, he doesn't look bad, but this is 2 weeks where he hasn't performed at all. And some of it is because he has a lack of weapons. There was no Julio, no Chris Godwin this game. Mike Evans faced his kryptonite. So Tom Brady isn't all to blame, but there is in the back of your mind, he is dealing with a lot of off-field stuff. And he is the one man that is undefeated from Father Time as of right now. And you're wondering, will Father Time win this battle against Tom Brady? Personally, I don't think he would have came out of retirement if he still wasn't that guy, if he still couldn't play at a high level. I'm going to give this one a 5 for right now. I am alarmed by how slow Tom Brady has started out, and I am lowering him a bit in my rest of season rankings, but I still think he'll pick it up a bit more. I definitely don't think he will produce at the high clip that he has in Tampa Bay, but I don't think he'll do more of this on a consistent basis. On to wide receiver, starting off with Darnell Mooney. As a Darnell Mooney owner, I'm not too concerned. I am concerned, but I'm not too concerned. I'm more frustrated with the Bears' usage of the passing game. Darnell Mooney caught 1 catch for -4 yards. If you are listening to this right now, you, me, everybody, every single person in the world had literally more than every single person in the world, unless you had -5 yards, had more receiving yards than Darnell Mooney, which is ridiculous. In week 1, the Bears had 17 passing attempts, and you think that they can't possibly have less than this. You know, they played in the Flood Bowl, they played in the Mud Bowl, the Flood Bowl, Mud Bowl, and they threw 17 passes. Okay, it's going to go up from here. You know, their passing game will have a bounce back. No! They threw for 11 passing attempts. They went down. It's pretty ridiculous. I personally think that it will go up, but the question is, when will their passing volume go up? Because the league average is about mid-20s, low 30s. So it's such a huge disparity between those two, and you just have to believe that their passing volume does go up, but it's just, when does it go up? I am going to bench Darnell Mooney until they prove that they will start passing the ball a lot more. But until then, Darnell Mooney will be forced to ride it out on the bench. He looks the same. He looks extremely great. There's nothing wrong with Darnell Mooney. It's just the simple, they're not passing the ball enough for him to be productive at all. I'm going to give this one a 3. I'm not too worried about Darnell Mooney unless they continue to just not pass the ball. If they continue to not pass the ball, then this will go into a full-on 10. Elijah Moore, 3 for 41. We talked a little bit about this, or we talked a great deal about this, but I'm giving this one a 6. I am worried about Elijah Moore, but I still do believe and have hope that he will continue to be the number 1 for this offense. All we can do is cross our fingers and pray. I got both my fingers crossed. I got 4 of my fingers crossed right now. Really, I got all my fingers crossed but my thumbs. I'm doubled up on each hand. I'm praying Elijah Moore bounces back, because we got Elijah Moore and Darnell Mooney on one of my main teams, and DJ Moore. So we're not looking too great right now. So my team is, I said it starting off, my team is on the ER. My team is falling off the bone. My running backs cannot carry me for too long, because running backs have not even been doing that good in fantasy this year. I tried to switch it up and draft running back heavy. I usually go super wide receiver heavy. I usually go either wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, maybe another wide receiver, and draft a running back. But I was like, you know what? This year, let me switch it up. And I went running back, and I think I went running back again, and then wide receiver, tight end. Yeah, my team is struggling right now. It's not too bad, but I did draft Trey Lance, and unfortunately, it's not his fault, but he broke his ankle. So, I won the championship last year. I changed my name to 2 Pete, and it's not going too well. Anyways, Mike Evans, 3 for 61. This isn't too concerning. He did get suspended for the fight that he went into, but I mean, what do you expect him to do? It's Tom Brady. He went up against his kryptonite, so I wasn't expecting him to go too crazy. Marshawn Lattimore, at this point, I believe Marshawn Lattimore is just in his head. Mike Evans is an extremely elite wide receiver, and somehow Marshawn Lattimore just owns him. Like, this is extremely rare that you see somebody just completely dominate another person throughout their entire career. I'm giving this a 1. I'm not worried about Mike Evans. Brandon Cooks, 4 for 54. I'm giving this one a 2. I'm not too worried about him either. He's going to have games like this just in the offense he plays, that he's not going to have too great of games. He's not going to be extremely dominant whole season. He's going to have his ups and downs just based on the offense he plays in. DK Metcalf, 4 for 35. If you drafted DK, you had to expect this level of play going in. Yes, he will give you some big games. I'm giving this one a 5, because if you drafted him, you had to expect this going into the year. You knew who his quarterback was. You knew what his offensive situation was. So you can't have expected DK to be the same DK that he has been these past few years. Yes, it is concerning, but you expected this drafting DK. You hope that there's better to come, and I do believe that there will be better to come. But if you drafted DK, you were getting what you expected. On the other hand, Davante Adams, 2 for 12 and 1 touchdown. We saw that Davante Adams and Derek Carr can give you the highs, and we just saw that Davante Adams and Derek Carr can give you the lows. 2 catches and 12 yards and 1 touchdown would have never happened with Aaron Rodgers. Not saying that Derek Carr is trash, because I love me some Derek Carr, but you see that Davante Adams will not be the consistent fantasy producer like he was on the Packers. I do believe he'll bounce back. I'm giving this one a 3, because we don't know just how consistent he will be yet at this point, 2 weeks into the season. But we do see that if he didn't catch that touchdown, there can be some pretty low lows for Davante Adams. But we saw week 1, there can be some pretty high highs. So I'm not too worried, considering Davante Adams is extremely talented. Derek Carr can get him the ball. But it's really very much something to monitor. Some people that had some bad weeks, Juju Smith-Schuster. There's going to be a different wide receiver who gets it done for the Chiefs every week. If you have Juju, you need to know this. I'm giving this one a 7. I think he will not be a consistent. I was high on Juju coming into this season, but I am worried about Juju rest of the season, at least on a consistent fantasy producing level. Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. I'm giving this one an 8. Neither one of them have produced at all. And this Titans offense does not look too good. Yes, they just played the Buffalo Bills, who absolutely embarrassed the Rams, who just won the Super Bowl. But you would like to see a bit more production from Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. There will be better days to come for these people, but I don't see too much upside for either one of them, which is why I'm giving this an 8. Moving on to the running backs, Javonte Williams, 15 for 75 in 1 catch. After what felt like 50 catches he had in week 1, this is a very big disparity between the 2 weeks. I do believe that Javonte Williams will have some better days. I'm giving this one a 6 because I am worried about his split with Melvin Gordon, but Javonte Williams will have some games like you saw in week 1 where he just gets it done by any means necessary. I do believe he gets into the end zone a bit more this year, but this is one of the reasons why I was afraid of drafting Javonte Williams this year. His split with Melvin Gordon does him 0 favors. Melvin Gordon is going nowhere. I don't know why people thought Melvin Gordon was just going to disapparate into thin air and it was just going to be the Javonte Williams show. No. Melvin Gordon joined back the team because he knew he would have a role. No, he's not the main back anymore, but he still has a very big role. Derrick Henry, 13 for 25. A lot of people will be quick to say Derrick Henry is washed and that foot injury just murked him. And it looks that way, but you still got to remember this is Derrick Henry. I mean, he's had games where if you stop him in the backfield, he doesn't produce. Now, some of it may be because of the foot injury. Maybe he's not 100% back. Maybe it's affected his foot, his explosiveness. But we're going to talk about it tomorrow. But Derrick Henry is definitely a trade for target for me. I'm not trading Derrick Henry away. If you have him, I would ride out with him, thug it out. You're going to take some lumps, it looks like. But I do believe that there are better days ahead for Derrick Henry. I'm giving this one a 5. I'm literally middle of the pack about this. I want to just ride it out and see how he does. I would trade for him because I do want to ride it out and see how he does on my team, because if he bounces back, Derrick Henry will be Derrick Henry again. But if he doesn't, it looks scary. Cordero Patterson, 10 for 41. This is someone who I was skeptical about their week 1 performance, mainly because of his age, but because he had up and down weeks, specifically last year. After a few weeks of him going off last year, he kind of tapered off and was having good week, bad week, good week, bad week, bad week, bad week, good week, bad week, good week, good week, bad week, bad week. And I think you'll see a lot more of that this year as well. I don't think he just like falls off the face of the earth again. I'm giving this one a 7 because I do think it is very alarming, but I don't think he will just be bad for your fantasy team. If there is someone out there who believes in Cordero Patterson fully, I would definitely be trading Cordero Patterson to them, but Cordero Patterson will be solid. Leonard Fournette had 24 for 65 on the ground. I'm giving him a pass for this one. I'm giving this a 2. I'm not too worried about Leonard Fournette rest of the season. He will score more touchdowns. He already came out and said he will score more touchdowns. A lot of players say that. Sometimes they deliver, sometimes they don't, but I believe him. The entire Tampa Bay offense got shut down for the most part against the Saints defense. They always have pretty low scoring close games, so I wasn't expecting too much out of Leonard Fournette this game, and there's going to be better days ahead. If the Leonard Fournette owner has any doubts about him and wants to trade him away, pull the trigger. This may be the lowest you can get Leonard Fournette for at any point in this season, and I will be trading for Leonard Fournette. We're going to talk more about it. I don't want to give any more spoilers out, but Leonard Fournette, have no fear. He's going to be amazing for the rest of the season. Ezekiel Elliott, on the other hand, 15 for 53. I'm giving this one a 9. Tony Pollard had a more productive day than him, total yardage wise. And Zeke was one of the people that I was really skeptical about going into this season as well, because his production has gone down yardage wise every year since the year he's been drafted. And it looks like it's going to happen again this year. If you have Zeke, I don't know if I would keep him, but his trade value isn't too high right now. Maybe if you got some Cowboys fans in your league, you could kind of like slide Zeke their way, but maybe they prefer Tony Pollard. I mean, Zeke, we'll talk about him a lot tomorrow, but man, Zeke, I am very afraid for Zeke rest of the season. I am very afraid for Zeke. Josh Jacobs, 19 for 69. He's getting the work, but he's just not getting the touchdowns. The Cardinals defense was pretty good, and I'm really big on Josh Jacobs, but this doesn't look good for him. I'm giving this a 6 because he's always been pretty relatively touchdown dependent, and it doesn't look like the offensive line has improved too much to the point where he can get crazy total high yardage rushing wise. So, I mean, I would trade, if you need a running back badly, I would trade for Josh Jacobs, but I wouldn't break the bank for him because I'm very worried about him. I do think he'll eventually fall back within the top 25 running backs when rest of the season. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll finish out where you drafted him to be, but it'll be a lot of Rockies. It'll be a lot of up and downs. So just if you have him and you want to keep him, go ahead, but he's not an every week start. Dalvin Cook, 6 rushes for 17 yards. This is not what you expect from Dalvin Cook, especially from previous years where he's had, it feels like 15, 16 plus rushing attempts almost every game. But this new offense will be very pass heavy, and I'm not too worried about Dalvin Cook. Yes, this is a very low yardage total, but they were getting blown out, so like they weren't going to be rushing the ball, but he will be catching a lot more passes. So I'm not too worried about him. I would be trading. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I would be trading for Dalvin Cook if the owner was a bit low on him, especially after this week. They may be a little scared. So Dalvin Cook, I think he'll be fine for the rest of the season. I'm giving this one a 4. There is room for doubt because, or I wouldn't say doubt, it does dampen my spirits on him a bit because 6 carries is horrible. They may be I don't know if they're going to be getting blown out like this again this year, but if it happens, he's probably going to put up another game like this, to be honest, unless he has some goal line touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 9 for 54. There's nothing to see here. This is a 1. This is a 1. This is a negative. This is a 0. Yeah, like, yes, the offense for the Colts, Matt Ryan, I'm very low on it, but Jonathan Taylor, he had 9 rushes, but he had 54 yards. Like, you give any other running back 9 rushes, they're coming out of that game with like 30 yards, 20 yards. You give Derrick Henry 9 rushes, he was going to have like 10 yards. This is a rare stinker from Jonathan Taylor, and I don't think there will be many more. Rashad Penny, AJ Dillon. Rashad Penny, I'm giving him an 8. I'm very worried about Rashad Penny, mainly because of the offense that he plays in, but I think there will be better days ahead. AJ Dillon, I'm giving this one a 3. We already established that AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, I was going to say AJ Jones again, but AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, they're going to split the productive days. There's really nothing to see. He will be on here again for sure this week, or not this week, for sure this year. Aaron Jones will be back on here as well. There's nothing to see here. They'll split up and down days. I'm not too worried about AJ Dillon. I think he's a fine play. Tight ends. Surprisingly, these are the 2 tight ends that were taken pretty high. I have TJ Hawkinson starting off with him, 3 for 26. This is another one I'm giving this one a 5. I'm not particularly too worried about him because I do think he'll bounce back, but he hasn't been what you drafted him to be. He's gotten the consistent targets. He's gotten 7 targets apiece in these past 2 weeks, but he hasn't done anything with them, which has been it's more frustrating than fearful, I would say, which is the same thing with the next guy we're going to talk about, Kyle Pitts, 2 for 19. He's gotten the targets, but he hasn't done anything with them. Like, I think these 2 will definitely bounce back. Tight ends this year, it's been, if you don't have Mark Andrews, if you don't have Travis Kelce, you're in the pits right now. Like, unless you have one of the other guys that have just gone off from week to week or done pretty good. But TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts, if you took them early over a running back or a wide receiver, you're suffering right now. I am suffering right now in my main league. I am suffering very much, but I do believe my team will bounce back. I don't have a horrible team. It's just they're all getting off the slow starts, and it sucks. Nobody wants to trade for these guys because they're all getting off the slow starts, and it's not like the rest of the guys are just trash. Like, you can't give up on these people in 2 weeks unless there's very much so reason to, which we will be getting into tomorrow. But that's all we have for this session. Check out our Twitter if you're here from YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts for our weekly waiver pickups. We won't be doing a video on it, but we do Twitter posts. Before we started this Sloth Uni video stuff, that's what we were doing. I'll post all my starts of the week, all my sloths of the week. I'll post all my busts. Everything would be in a Twitter thread. We're going to be doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that here on Twitter for all the people that still follow me, just for a little throwback. So this time up around, we got our waiver pickups on Twitter. We'll be back tomorrow, like I've been saying, but we're gonna have some more in-depth adjustments to the season. We talked a little bit about it, but we're gonna go a lot more in depth. We're gonna have some trade for and trade away targets tomorrow. But as always, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and comment who won or lost you this week. Most importantly, stay safe, spread love, and tune into the Miami Dolphins game against the Bills next week. Class dismissed.
All right, kid, here's the deal. At any given time, there are around 1,500 aliens on the planet, most of them right here in Manhattan. And most of them are decent enough. They're just trying to make a living.
Cab drivers.
No, not as many as you'd think. Humans, for the most part, don't have a clue. They don't want one or need one either. They're happy. They think they have a good bead on things.
But why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
The person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were alone on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.